Says his hunt was legal and that he depended on his guides to comply with the law. But Zimbabwe's environment minister calls Palmer, quote, a foreign poacher. The killing has sparked worldwide anger, and we will see if Palmer is extradited or not. A petition to the White House calling for his extradition now has over 200,000 signatures. Let's talk about it with former UN and State Department official David Tafuri. So, you know, this is not just about legally whether he can be extradited. I think that answer is pretty clear. Yes, he can be extradited. There's an extradition treaty between the U.S. and Zimbabwe since 2000. There's also a political element to this. How much weight do you think the United States will put on human rights concerns about Zimbabwe and President Robert Mugabe and the legal system there as to whether they want a U.S. citizen to be tried there?
Well, that will definitely play an important part of the decision of whether the U.S. will extradite him or will try to prosecute him here. I think it's clear that he will be prosecuted either here or in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has a very strong argument that he should be extradited. The process is very interesting. He would actually have to have his case reviewed by the State Department and then by the Department of Justice. If the Department of Justice decided it was an extraditable case, they would then forward the file to a judge, and they would arrest him, and then he would appear before a judge and have a hearing. He would be able to try and defend himself against being extradited in that hearing. But given the great amount of public concern about this and the pressure on the government, I think the government would agree to extradite him. The judge would probably be forced to allow him to be extradited. Then it goes back to the State Department, and the State Department has another decision to make, whether ultimately to let him be extradited. Again, I think they would. But the question is, will the U.S. prosecute him? And that will be up to the Fish and Wildlife Service, which is investigating this right now, and to the Department of Justice.
But David, on what grounds could the U.S. Charge him, right? This isn't something that happened in the United States. He didn't break any laws, we don't think, in the United States in this case.
He didn't break any laws in the United States. However, the U.S. has signed treaties to protect certain species, and this is a protected species. And the U.S. has an obligation to enforce those treaties, and those treaties have the force of law in the U.S. Therefore, what he did in Zimbabwe can be a crime in the U.S. and can be prosecuted in the U.S.
All right, David Tafuri, formerly with the State Department. If anyone knows how this stuff works, you do. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
When we come back, a startling new look at children living in poverty in this country. Who is affected by it the most? We're going to tell you about the breakdown, especially when it comes to race.